So welcome, Jennifer Allen. She's a lifelong organizer and advocate who has led local, state, and national organizations dedicated to environmental and social justice. She served as executive director of ACLU of Arizona, senior vice president of League of Conservation Voters, the founding national director of CHISPA, the founding executive director of Border Action Network, a staff member at Western Shoshone Defense Project, and on the boards of Las Adelitas, Arizona, and Green Latinos. Combining years of community organizing and policy advocacy, Jen is a champion for human dignity and protecting our lands, air, and water for generations to come. She has called Pima County home since 1993. She is the dedicated mama of a bilingual son who attends a TUSD middle school, the partner of a City of Tucson employee, sister of a union truck driver, and daughter of parents who taught her the values of compassion and hard work. From immigration to protecting our democracy, to climate change and more, Jen brings to the role of county supervisor a commitment to serving all the constituents of Pima County's largest, most rural and beautiful district. Let's give her a nice warm welcome for Jen.
So thanks for having me. It's good to be here, and thank you for, I'm just staring at myself here. How do I not do that? Oh, there you all are. Thank you for your support and all the work to help get me elected. It has now been a role that I've held for the last basically 3 months, a little short of 3 months. I will say, when I first decided to throw my name in the hat back in late October of 2023, I did not imagine that this sort of political environment and this the sort of yanking out of federal funding from not just the county, but across our society was going to be the environment that I'd be stepping into. It's not ideal, but we're charting the course, and I think that as a community we're resilient, and we know how to fight, and we know how to stand up for one another and stand up for what's right. So we continue to plow ahead. So since I have been here, I've been building out the team. So real quick, just a little bit of a context. District 3 of the county, the county's divided into 5 districts. District 3 is about 70% of Pima County. It's the district that in the city of Tucson, it parallels, for the most part, City Ward 3, Kevin Dahl's ward. So it's, kind of Grant to the river, from Swan is the eastern boundary, Grant is the southern boundary, the river itself is the northern boundary, plus or minus, and there's a few little exceptions in the city of Tucson. And then then it swoops out and reaches up into Marana, drops all the way down Arivaca, Amado, western side of Sahuarita, west of I-19, and then just goes all the way out past the Totonacato Nation, 130 miles U.S.-Mexico border, and then out beyond Ajo. So it is both it's the rural, it's the urban, suburban, indigenous. It's an incredibly complex and diverse district. And that's what I love about District 3. So we have been building out our team. I hired 2 folks for my campaign who you may have met. CJ Boyd, who was my campaign manager, is my new chief of staff. Josh Laughlin, who was my field director, is now a senior aide. We brought on Bonnie Bazada. You may know her from her time at the county. She led the charge behind the county's prosperity initiative, a bold framework to both combat poverty throughout Pima County and build intergenerational wealth. So she built out a great framework for the county and all the municipalities within it to be able to do that. And then we also hired Claudia Bungard, who does both our management of the office and our communications work. A fantastic team, very excited to have them. And if you've got questions around kind of District 3 or the county, don't hesitate to reach out, and they're phenomenal. So We have divided up the district both geographically as well as from an issue perspective and kind of interest basis. So each of those staff all have kind of an area that they focus on. We've been tackling a lot of constituent issues, as you can imagine. I think we've had about maybe 60 kind of ones that warrant some work and digging in, helping folks navigate the county's kind of processes and bureaucracies, et cetera. But we've also just been spending a ton of time in trying to get to know the county. I think of it as our responsibility, our due diligence in this role is to understand the breadth, the depth, the roles, the responsibilities of all the departments of the county. The county government is huge. We have spent, I think we've done about 30 introductory meetings with county departments. We got about 30 more to go. As we stretch it out and map it out, we should be wrapping it up by midsummer. We have done everything from taking tours at PAC, tour of Tres Rios, wastewater facility, out at the stadium, kind of you name it, from planning and development to the Office of Homeless Services, and on, facilities, fleet. You can kind of imagine there's a lot, community workforce development, and many others. But I think it's incredibly important, right? It's sort of a no-brainer, really. As a county supervisor, we need to have a deep understanding throughout our office of what the county does, and then importantly, who does what. So as issues arise, we know who to direct people to, we know who to call so that we can try to troubleshoot as best we can. Some of the other things, and then, we also just make it out to events across the district. So from out at the Tohono Nations, rodeo and annual parade, to getting out to some of the elementary schools in Flowing Wells for Love of Reading Week, to Ajo for the Western Pima County Community Council meetings monthly, and then out to like the Altar Valley, working with the Conservation Alliance and picking up trash along the road from the 3 Points down to Sasabe. I've got 5 Board of Supervisor meetings under my belt. We have one coming up tomorrow. Uh, and some of the issues that have arisen, particularly from a District 3 perspective, we had on the agenda proposed cell tower. Then we heard from about 90% of the Pitcher Rocks community in opposition to the cell tower. I led the vote against it, and trying to ensure that we can protect the community in the desert there. That is what drew everybody to it. We've got on the table a wildfire mitigation plan, particularly for rural areas. We are amidst the budget planning process. This is where we're doing something new at the county this year and trying to make it more of a transparent process. I think there's more that we can do in coming years, but if you want to take a look on the counties, if you go to the Pima County Supervisors agenda and meeting minutes, you can find from a couple meetings ago, the supplementary budget requests. So this is all of the things that departments have requested that go above and beyond what is the core budget, meaning what their budget consisted of for the kind of current past fiscal year. So all of that is included. I believe there's even some annotations that say kind of a yes, needs discussion, no. And that has been kind of the preliminary discussions, and that those discussions continue to evolve. We also now have on the table capital improvement budget. So it's all of the capital items within the budget that are tied again to departments. Those are also outlined in a spreadsheet that you can take a look at and give some feedback on. The big item, kind of the elephant in the room, is the impact of the executive orders in freezing or trying to claw back federal funding to the county, as well as other entities across the region. So for the county, we've got about 150 active grants that have been affected by the executive orders. The grants represent about 160 million, about 10% of the county's budget. Most of those grants fall within the realm of the Pima County Health Department. I think you may probably have seen the news. I'll touch on that a little bit, as well as community and workforce development. So, they reach about 20 departments, but most of the funding is within those two departments, Health Department and Community and Workforce Development. So it's the most vulnerable and the folks who need the services, and most of the services, those are the grants, no shocker, that are the most sort of tenuous right now. I think every week, so there's that pool about 100 and it's about $160 million worth of grants, and it's about 150. About each week, we're getting news and updates on sort of the status of them. And as you can sort of imagine, it's not normally good news. They continue to, we get sort of the hatchet drops down. So recently, last week, it was about, just about, or maybe a hair over $2 million confirmed loss for the Pima County Health Department. There are couple dozen folks who are, my understanding is that they have been informed that they will have to be laid off, but those grants actually touch and are billed to about 50 Pima County Health Department employees. A lot of the employees work within the immunizations, COVID work, and kind of the outreach and making sure that we are getting immunizations out across the county into the hard to reach in the rural areas. So, we are discussing what that means and how we can push back and how we can protect the health of our community without sacrificing the health of our community, which is something that the administration is more than willing to do. And we expect to get more of this bad news as it rolls out. It's just the tip of the iceberg. I don't know if there's any other way to sort of think about it. The impacts of this are going to be, I think, broad and profound as it plays out, because not only are these budget cuts affecting and impacts affecting the county, but then it also affects everybody that we partner with. It affects the city of Tucson, the University of Arizona. It affects the hospitals and medical institutions, the nonprofits, all of these institutions across our community that rely on federal funding to provide critical services and supports to the most vulnerable across our community. Not to mention some of the budget impacts that we could see on Medicaid. So yeah, these are some tough times, and we are going to figure out how we can ensure that we are prioritizing the folks who are most vulnerable and the folks that have the greatest need, and make sure that our community is as strong as possible. But it is, yeah, it is a mess, to put it, just bluntly, that we are being dealt at the federal level. So we are, well, and I think maybe the other elephant in the room too, of just like things happening at the county. I'm sure you have all seen the rollout today of Supervisor Grewal's announcement that she is resigning because she is going to be running for her dad's seat in CD7. So we will be accepting her resignation at our meeting tomorrow. That was just added to the agenda, and be talking about, I believe, a process to fill that vacant seat as soon as possible. So that's all I got, and I would love to answer any questions.
And do we have any already? Lillian Fox has a question.
Yeah, I don't know if you know about this, but Congressman Siscomani is proposing something called the Flash Act, and it would create a zone from the border up to 100 miles or to 100 miles inland. And as you know, Tucson is 60 miles from the border, so all of Tucson and probably all of your district would be included in that zone. And within that zone, some regulations and laws aren't going to apply. That's everything I know about it. Do you know about it?
I have not heard of it. I will check it out. There has been in the past and I'm trying to think of the name of it. I'm blanking, but going back to my days when I was with Border Action Network, there's a lot of precedent for federal legislation that essentially tries to turn the whole border region into this kind of lawless zone in which the Endangered Species Act, National Environmental Policy Act, all sorts of requirements around Native American consultations, and a lot of the sort of traditional protections just get null and void in the name of national security and border security. But it has not, generally it has not made its way up into kind of they've limited it closer to the border. But 100 miles yeah. I'll check it
And
out.
it
Thank you.
definitely would take out the environmental laws. It's not clear what else it would take out, because in Project 2025, they've talked about militarizing the border.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so people can also write up a question in the chat, and Mike Bryan will be overseeing that. And in fact, he has a hand up. Mike.
Yeah. In fact, we already have a question in the chat from Bharathan. Let me voice that for him. He wants to know how the residents of Pima County can help county leadership deal with the problems imposed by the federal administration.
I do feel like I am a newbie, and this is one of those things where like it is a fire hose sort of spraying us down. So I wish I had more breadth and depth of experience under my belt in this particular role. That said, I think the pushback, the fight has to be felt. And I think the rage and the fury has to be felt by Gallego, by Kelly, by Siscomani, that they have to know that what is happening is absolutely not acceptable to Arizonans. It is not acceptable to their constituents, and it has to be named the harm that they are doing, that there is absolutely nothing efficient about what is happening, about the dismantling both of government departments and agencies and structures, but the impacts on everyday people's lives has got to be named and elevated and pushed into the laps of our members of Congress, and particularly, I think, our two senators that need to be standing strong, who, as our Democrats representing the state. So I think keeping the pressure on them is just super important.
Yeah, thanks for that answer. I have a good question of my own. We're seeing cities come up against some shortages in shared revenue from the state as a result of the flat tax and other things that the state government has done under its MAGA leadership. Are you seeing any impacts or expecting to see any impacts in this budget cycle from state shared revenues?
Yeah. So the county derives its funding through kind of this. We got three revenue flows, right? So one is feds and state, the other is through property tax, and then the other is through fees, right? That county services generate. So on the state side, interestingly, our state shared revenue is up. And I'd have to, just to be honest, like I kind of got to dig in more why that is, because logic has it, right, that when we go from a progressive to a flat tax, that we're getting less. And I should also say that there are bills in the legislature that are working to actively shift more costs onto cities and counties, and shifting costs away from the state. So the larger, logic and legislation points to an increased cost burden being placed on the county. But I'm still trying to dig into and understand better why it is that our state shared revenues are actually up right now. What our projection is not for that to be the case, moving into the next fiscal year, starting July 1. But right now they are, and it might just be from an increase in people buying things, right? State sales tax might be up.
I was going to suggest that, yeah.
Yeah, as opposed to state tax, but.
Well, a traditional Republican would call those burden shiftings unfunded mandates. Can you give us a couple of examples of things that are under consideration by the state government to push down those responsibilities into local jurisdictions?
Oh, well, so I've just heard this in sort of some broader terms, so I don't actually have the specificity behind it. A couple of legislators had flagged. Oh, actually, there's an association, the County Supervisors Association, that monitors legislation that would particularly either take authority away from county government and or increase the economic hardship or responsibilities of county government. And there's a number of bills that we are opposing through that vehicle that are just aiming to push some costs onto counties and sort of take it out of the state's normal purview.
Well, Jennifer, I got a question for you. What is the latest on the state of the libraries in Pima County?
Yeah. So I think is the only there was a memo. It was leaked that came out that was being sort of a discussion around internal discussion around the libraries. So it created a whole lot of controversy and community upset right around the idea of closing down a number of libraries. So that was kind of put on hold until there was some more community engagement, community process happening to understand better the needs and the realities of our library system. So right now it's still in the information gathering phase. We just sat down with the director of the library department, along with her kind of key staff, and they are not, nobody wants to shut down libraries, including the librarians that, themselves. I think it's just a matter of making sure that we've got the libraries in places that make sense for the library to be, and that are not too, it's not inefficient. I've also been finding, this is somewhat like a little tangent, but we have deferred. So all these county buildings, this is one of the things I hear about a ton from department directors, is that we have deferred maintenance costs on all of these county buildings. And we have a ton of county buildings and county property. And so the estimates, and it's terrible, right? Because the costs of the building maintenance has just increased and increased, especially with this with tariffs impacting the costs of a lot of repairs. So costs are just going up, and we've deferred maintenance. So now we're sort of stuck with a lot of buildings that need a whole lot of work. There's a lot of ideas around moving from the downtown library to finding another spot downtown that is just a building that doesn't require as much maintenance. It's estimated that to get the downtown library building kind of up to speed is about $80+ million, which is a hefty price tag. So yeah, so I think it's still all in discussion though.
Okay, thank you. What's your question for Jen?
The whole notion when, excuse me, when this federal funding gets cut back, programs get eliminated, the talk in general in the entire political world, every part of the world, is financial. I think Democrats really need to hit hard on the personalization of this. Your kid could wind up with polio or measles. Kids in school aren't going to get fed. I think need to get away from this broad concept and really hit people between the eyes. I mean, ultimately, all of us, we don't react until it affects all of us personally, but it's not a case of crying wolf. It said, yeah, your kid can go to the doc's office and get a vaccine, but little Billy in the next desk, mommy and daddy don't want, you're not going to stick a needle in my kid's arm and save him or save the rest of the kids. It really has to start getting pretty hard hitting, and not this broad, well, it's funding, it's $1 million here or a grant. It really needs to be a personalized, hit people between the eyes on this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I don't expect people to go out and walk into every public session and say your kid's not going to eat at school, or the air you breathe and your child breathes, and the FDA and the CDC with crazy Kennedy Jr. there.
Well, it's good advice. I mean, CEBV, Civic Engagement Beyond Voting, always recommends that when you're going and giving testimony to a legislative body like the Pima Supervisors, that you always use your personal stories, because they can argue with your facts, but they can't argue with your experience.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well said,
So-
Sandy.
Allison Hughes says, I recognize that the post office is a federal issue, but it's also a very local one. You know, every one of us has a mailbox. So what can we do at the local level to save the post office? And, you know, specifically here in Tucson, we have a lot of delays in mail because they keep trying to shut our regional office, and, you know, all the mail has to go up to Phoenix and then come back to Tucson. So do you have a finger on the pulse of what's going on with our mail service here locally?
I have not heard. Sorry, I'm making a little note here. I have not heard about what they're attempting to do that could even, you know, further slow down our mail and further, you know, diminish the power of postal workers and the importance of postal workers and make their lives harder.
Well, they're certainly trying, but DeJoy thankfully resigned, but, you know, unfortunately, I think we'll get somebody even worse.
Musk wants to close it down.
Yeah, he wants to privatize the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
So Lillian's got her hand up again. You want to ask a
Yeah,
question?
Lillian, what else we have?
Yeah, I was going to say something back about the libraries. TUSD is grossly incompetent. This year, they have budgeted $4,000 for 89 schools. That's all the libraries are getting total. Last year, they got $40,000 total. And so when you look into deciding which libraries you're going to close or if you're going to close, keep in mind, a lot of kids may not have access to a school library with current books at all.
Yeah,
The best thing they have are the Pima County libraries, and they have a hard time with transportation, so you can't expect them to travel, you know, long distances to get to the nearest library. We really need the Pima County libraries for the benefit of the lower income kids and people.
Yep.
good point.
And
Point.
that's all I wanted to say.
That's great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike, we got some more in the chat.
Not right now, but I do have a question. You know, there's a lot of regional cooperation here in Southern Arizona between the various governmental jurisdictions. One of the big ones coming up for renegotiation is, of course, the Regional Transportation Authority. So what's the latest update on RTA Next? You know, how's the negotiations coming on that?
Well, so I don't sit on the RTA board. Supervisor Grijalva was representing the Board of Supervisors on the board. So that's going to end up shifting around. You know, they have met once since the beginning of the year, despite the fact that there's supposed to be a, you know, this little vote coming up. You know, it doesn't seem good. It doesn't seem good. You know, I hear nothing but profound concerns from folks kind of all around at different levels of engagement and participation in that process. So I look forward to learning more and trying to get a little more info on what's going to happen.
Ben, good to see you.
Good to see you, Joe. I have got a question that relates to an earlier point you made, Jen, about needing to hold Republicans like Siscomani and even our Democrats.
No, I think his Wi-Fi there on campus cut out.
Their office every single damn day to make sure they vote the right way in the face of tons of institutional and financial power that Republicans have that very moderate Democrats have, especially in this tumultuous moment where people are looking for maybe a different path forward. In a sense, how do we elect good people?
How do we elect good people? Is that the
The thrust of the question. Yeah, well, we got one, so, you know, just keep going.
You know, I think it's all, well, how do we elect good people? You know, I think we gotta build up at the organizational level. I think, like, you know, finding people who are connected to communities. Because I think when you work at the grassroots, at the community level, you understand what accountability really means and what it looks like, and you understand and have worked around people's daily life struggles. right? And so I think making sure that we put people in who care about people's daily life struggles, and either they have experienced it themselves or they have worked around it. They have worked to fight with people arm in arm around daily life struggle, because we need leaders who understand that now. Because right now we got folks who are just looking to try to turn our government into another for-profit for a handful of wealthy white billionaires. And so we need folks who care about and understand people. And as simplistic as that sounds, it's lacking. I think we elect we elect a lot of moderates that want to represent some limited perspectives and sort of want to get think that things will still happen through a trickle down model, that if we can have some strong business or strong corporations, that'll be, magically people's healthcare and their education and their unions are going to be able to, thrive. And I think we gotta build up our grassroots organizations and make sure that we're electing people who come from that experience. Get them in.
Okay, well, we've got some hands up. Sandy Sauls, your hand's up.
Yeah, as a follow-up to Mike's question on RTA, with the city sales tax getting creamed 2-1, that does not bode well. Have there been discussions going on how to turn that around? Because that's a real the RTA thing is a really focused thing with the county versus the city. So any talks about that happening?
About how to
Yeah, how to kumbaya the whole thing.
I mean, I think it's it doesn't if the goal is to pass RTA, the failure of 414 doesn't bode well, right? I also just think that, like, in a larger context, with so much happening nationally, and so much sort of economic insecurity right now, it is hard for me to imagine voters approving a tax increase. Just not knowing what's going to happen with a sort of economic trade, a trade war. So they're tough times to move that forward. I think, the city and county can work together and figure out what we might be able to do to salvage and fight for our needs and put it, piece things together. But yeah, it's tough to get that kind of thing approved right now by the voters.
Yeah. So is it possible that we could come together with a regional MOU, memorandum of understanding between the governments without any sort of revenue source for RTA, or is that just not worth doing?
Without a revenue source, I mean, it's, so much of RTA is based on projects, right?
Yeah.
And expenditures that people want to see happen or need to see happen.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I mean, the last time around, I guess we did an enhanced, additional taxes, but, could we do it around a bond issue, with specific projects bonded and, certified for bonding, and do it that way instead of a revenue source?
Yeah, the county has not passed a bond. In fact, I got a little flyer around it. We haven't approved a bond for quite a while. I think it was an animal care facility in 2014 that was very much focused on PAC. There was one that we approved in 2006 that was focused on like psychiatric inpatient urgent care. And then before that, 2004 was the last kind of comprehensive bond that was passed by the county. We have a whole lot of bonding capacity.
Yeah.
We got a whole lot of need. And I also just learned too that, it's always been my assumption, my understanding that bonds have to be spent on capital projects.
Yeah.
But that's actually not the case. It's just the sort of common assumption that that's what you need to do. But it is not a sort of a statutory requirement that that bonds need to be for capital goods. It can also be for kind of programs and services.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, we may need to go down that path to be able to fill in some gaps and to keep us on the path of being a stable, sustainable community.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions with their hands up. Russell?
I want to thank you for being here in the position that you're in. I really can't think of anybody better that would fill your shoes. And I really appreciate that. But from the administration, there's so much noise. I mean, so much noise. There were all these base reasons why you ran for this position. And now the presidential administration is diverting us away from those goals, trying to divert your office and all these other offices from pursuing the goals that you had or have. And so how do we keep on track with those goals, like global warming issues, pollution issues, homeless issues, while still getting this fire hose of crap that's trying to basically blow all those issues out? Do we let them just blow out all those issues? Or do we somehow stick to those and find time to work with those? How do you deal with all that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's yep. I did come in being like, oh, well, yeah, my my commitment to fighting climate change and ensuring that we have a bold and aggressive county climate plan that brings in all the municipalities and focuses not just on our operations, but across our, all of that is now the funding that the county had is all, put on hold. As just one example. I think some of it is I mean, my take is that we need to set some priorities in a difficult economic environment when our resources are limited. We need to figure out how it is that we can protect the most vulnerable and limit as much exploitation as possible. So, one of the things I think thinking around some of the environmental issues, I want to make sure that our DEQ, our Department of Environmental Quality, that our enforcement arm is as strong as possible. Given that both at the federal level from the administration as well as from Congress, all of the pushes to open up our lands to extractive mining with little to no regard for the water, climate, and just land impacts and community impacts that would have, right? The Board of Supervisors has been really strong around its opposition to mining in Pima County. And so for myriad reasons. So I want to make sure that our enforcement arm is as strong as possible so that we can continue to push back against things like that. Another piece that I'm just learning my way through, again, as a new elected, is how I can use the office to be able to put pressure on our legislators, that they can be as strong as possible, as well as exerting some pressure on the governor's office and making sure that they know what our priorities are and what we expect them to do in order to protect Pima County, and to put some pressure on the feds too, making sure that we're reaching out, that I am reaching out to Kelly and Gallego and Siscomani, and that they know what we need from the county and from, the voters who put me here, who are also voters, who care about what they do and elect them too. So, I was concerned about this, I just saw a little blip about it, but that TEP, APS, and SRP were all coming together to explore the idea of a nuclear power plant. Which is, the most water consumptive form of energy possible. And then it also has just generations upon generations of impacts with nuclear waste. And so, I'm trying to make sure that as Pima County, we are letting them know that is not where we want our energy to be sourced from, and that we hope that they just clamp that down. That's not the direction we need to be going in, despite the fact that, the federal administration might love it.
Yeah, it takes 0.8 gallons per kilowatt hour that you use to cool a nuclear plant, and it takes 0.02 gallons to clean solar panels that are out in the field. And the costs of nuclear power are so high that they basically knock out the solar transition. They completely destroy the solar transition because the costs would be so high. There would be no extra capital funding for the solar facilities, for the whole big solar transition. So how do we keep that rolling? How do we keep that going? Opposing the nuclear folly, that these three companies are trying to insert into the system is one way, but how do we keep this going on a progressive way, not just fighting things, but going forward?
Yeah. I mean, I do think that even though the county funding tied to that enable us to do our climate plan, even without the funding, I think it's still a time in which we need to be, because I came in thinking like, okay, we need to expand this plan. We still need to do that. So I think it still gives us the opportunity to define the vision, because we're not going to live in this kind of world in which all of the things that are important to our communities, from health and education and the environment, on, are getting yanked out. Like, we're going to have to go through a big transition to rebuild the type of government that we need and the type of communities we need, because, well, we need it. So we need to continue to put those plans in place and know where north is, which direction is north, and be able to continue to chip away towards it. So I think the vision setting and articulating what that is has to continue, even though we know that we can't drive it forward in the way as aggressively and boldly as we'd like to right now.
Okay,
Thanks,
Susie.
Jim.
Susie has her hand up.
Hi there, Jen. It's so good to see you here. Ben Armentrout, our university young member, made me think of how do we approach and get more younger people involved in helping to turn this absolutely frightening administration around. I listen to music at night on my TV, and Juan Ciscomani comes in with this horrible advertisement saying, "Oh, I'm doing so much for you. Please call me and let me know what a great job I'm doing." I just about need to take my anti-nausea medication.
Yeah, but he won't show up to town halls. So
Oh,
Right.
so how do we, I have been trying to table where we go to things and meet people on a personal level, answer their questions. We've got some wonderful members who join me there. What is the best way to attract younger, more vocal fighters against this horror?
Yeah. I mean, I think being where young people are is and it makes sense, and is absolutely the thing to do. Be present so you can be there and try to talk to folks. One of the things that stuck with me, and one of the things we did at when I was at the League of Conservation Voters and CHISPA, we built out trying to think of what we called her position, but basically it was like a director of culture. Because I think, well, people get turned off, right? As we have seen this, like people don't like politics and what they think of as politics. And I remember this artist telling me that, or kind of cultural worker telling me that, people spend so much more of their time thinking about and like living in culture, right? And so we need to be much better at stepping away from thinking about and framing the issues and involvement in politics, and think about how to reach how to get the message into spaces of art and culture, because that's where most people live and most people are. Even folks who pay attention to the news often just spend a little blip of a moment watching the news, but so much of our daily lives is just what's the word I'm thinking? Inculcated, is that the word?
Mhm.
Whatever, submerged in culture. And so thinking about it that way, I think could open up some more doors so that we are talking about the issues that are important, the way that they impact people's lives, as Sandy said, talking about this in terms of people, in terms of impacts on people's lives, people who get measles, people who are at risk of getting polio, our water getting contaminated in our local lake, like breaking it down into real ways, but getting it to show up where people are at and where they're already thinking, and already kind of engaged in, and where they're already sort of aspirational towards. So, yeah, that's my
Yeah, and talking about issues that really impact younger folks is also really important. And one of those is the cost of housing these days. And Pima County specifically has issues not only around homelessness, but home affordability. What are you working on at the county to help alleviate the situation with the housing shortage and the problems with homelessness that we have here in Southern Arizona?
Yeah, so this is one area where the county and the city, I mean, there's many areas, but the county and the city work really closely together, because obviously I think homelessness, like many other issues, is one of these that if you sort of squeeze the balloon in one place, it just shifts over to somewhere else. And so, that could be the city and the county essentially investing efforts over here, which then just shifts the problems elsewhere. And so we know that we don't want to be doing that. I think there are, there's a staff person who kind of looks at the high level and communicates with the city and with the county and trying to make sure that our efforts are coordinated. So that is it may sound very simple, but, or as like not a, not a Herculean effort, but getting these big, massive entities to be able to just like communicate and coordinate is like step one, and ensuring that the resources are well utilized and not, count running against each other. We have been, the county has set aside, I think just this year, about $5 million to apply towards gap funding. So encouraging developers to build affordable housing, and integrating it into some of the developments that are happening, and just making sure that we are that we're building in a way that we're building more affordable housing. So we have been approving affordable housing at every single board meeting. Actually, at this coming board meeting, there is a change in some of our housing ordinances that is actually going to allow the building of triplexes in areas where it has not been allowed before, which I'm excited about, because I think the more that we can kind of open it up building and not have regulations be the hindrance, to a certain extent, right? Not that we're trying to open up land, but in certain areas where it makes sense that we should be having, instead of a single family residence, that we can have duplexes and triplexes and quadplexes. We should be doing that. So we're trying to make sure that some of our both the zoning and the ordinances and of what is permissible construction is meeting and helping to push that need. So that's going to be on the agenda tomorrow, and I am excited to see that go through. So,
Excellent.
little things and big things.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Lillian, your hand's up, so you have another question?
Yeah, I was reading an interesting article in the Arizona Daily Star, and one of the problems homeless people have, particularly women, is a place to go to the bathroom. They need safe places to go, and a lot of times they don't, have any place to go. And I know at my former church, homeless people used to sleep underneath the shrubbery. And one guy would get up every morning and poop on the sidewalk, which of course annoys people, but he was doing that because he had no place to go. So does the county have any plans to do anything about providing sanitary facilities for unhoused people?
I haven't heard that sort of specifically named. So a lot of the facilities, I mean, I guess we have worked with the city around cooling centers
Yeah.
during the heat, right, during the hot month, to be able to have a place where people can go is one thing. I think I saw a little notification come up around in the chat around libraries. Our libraries have been very, very open to and supportive of folks getting off the streets and using the libraries to use the restrooms and to be a place that folks on the streets can use. Probably it's more of the, given that there is a greater concentration of folks who are unhoused in the city, it's probably something that the mayor and council have contemplated a little bit more than we have at the county. But again, like I said, we've got some institutions, both from libraries and cooling centers, I think that do reach people kind of where they're at around the community. But
Jennifer,
clearly
problem with the
there's more
library-
that can be done.
Yeah. Problem with the
Jennifer?
libraries is they're not open on Sundays and their hours are not real great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jennifer, do you have a little bit more time or are you on a hard stop?
I should probably get off in a few minutes. I could stay on for maybe one more.
Well, I got a good question for her, if you don't mind there, Joe.
No, no problem.
Every council person, kind of has not their supervisor, I should say, has a dream when they get elected as to a policy that they want to pursue, a legacy they want to leave. Have you formed such an ambition yourself as to a signature policy or legacy that you want to leave behind as part of your public service?
So many. I mean, one of the things, and it is so complicated, and I would be, I hope that we can do this, but I want to reduce our jail population.
Yeah.
We took a tour of the jail, and the people who gave us the tour of the jail from the sheriff's department acknowledged that about 70% of the people sitting in the Pima County Jail, of which there's about 1,700 people there right now, about 70% of them are there because of mental health issues and substance use disorder issues. Right? And the corrections officers, they're not mental health folks. Like, they're not trained in this. Like, we continue to use the criminal justice system in lieu of investing in our health system, in our behavioral health system, and our substance health system, right? Like, the systems are just broken, and we use incarceration as a cure-all, as a one-size-fits-all, and it just does not work. And it is dehumanizing, it is undignified, and it does nothing to solve the problem. And it costs a whole ton of money. So if we could take what we would invest normally in our jails and invest with additional resources in meaningful, effective mental health systems and substance abuse systems, and get folks going that realm outside of an incarceral setting, independent of an incarceral setting, and really treat people at the root of their needs, I would feel good.
Yeah. Well, luckily you have a more than willing partner in Laura Conover, our county attorney.
Yeah.
Although I think our sheriff is still contemplating spending $100 million on a new jail out there. So good luck.
Yeah. 800
million. Oh, Jesus Christ. That's a lot of money.
Yeah,
Just
that
that.
certainly is. Okay, so Susie, you get to ask the
Thanks.
final question.
Yeah, how do we help those people that have mental health issues? When we elected one president and he's got a buddy in there who is helping him wipe out all of the mental health and physical health problems that we have.
I swore you were
We
going to
can't
ask,
even-
how are we going to fix this problem when we have a president who has a mental health problem? I swore that's
Yeah. So I'm sorry, how do we tackle mental health when all the forces are going against us?
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
way
that's
of
pretty well
putting it.
said. Yeah.
Much better political answer.
Yeah. Like, we know what's right. It's just about how do we align, I come from an organizing background, so you align your powers. You build your power and you align it. And that's what we need to do.
Okay, well, on that positive note, let's give Jan a big warm thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Coming, Jen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for all you do. Really appreciate it.
Hi everybody, Adrian Fuentes here. Did you know that the Democrats of Greater Tucson has a website, thedgt.org, and if you subscribe, it's only 20 bucks. You can support this great weekly communication where folks get together. Sometimes there's candidates, sometimes folks like me pop on to help understand what's going on in the world. The Democrats of Greater Tucson, thedgt.org. Join up today.